Guys, it's time to start the most important part of this project, changing this car from an automatic back to a manual like it's supposed to be. But here's the thing, most of this video won't be on this car. We're going to start it with a different one. So at least 2 years ago, if not before then, I had made a video on this car. So this is a 1977 that was wrecked, sold through Copart, and then sold to me as a complete car, other than it being just completely destroyed in the front. There were quite a few people who said I should restore this car, but after digging deeper, other than the obvious wreck damage, there's actually quite a bit of damage on this car that was unknown to me in the making of the last video. The main one being the floors are rusted out on both sides, and the bird cage, well, let's just say it's seen better days. Someone's already come in and tried to put some goop all over it, but the way I see it, if that part is rusty, then the part underneath the windshield, well, that's going to be rusty too. Also, it's had some interesting, this is not factory, it's had some interesting work done to it. For example, all black, then silver. Also, it is not an original black 77. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys before I take this motor out and this transmission out, how bad this actually was hit. So as you can see, I'm standing square to the car. So that is where the frame rail probably should be, and it's been pushed in. You can see this giant dent right here. It's actually quite amazing how bad this ended up being. You can see this motor mount right here is pushed back a couple of inches, and the bolt won't come out because the bolt is being pushed into the engine to get that out. The exhaust manifold broke. The Z-bar is completely bent and trashed. I have another one, so we won't be using that, but my hope is that the transmission somehow survived the impact and it doesn't have a broken bell housing, and the input shaft's all good, and etc., etc. But this frame is just so tweaked and so bad, it just gets worse the more you look at it. We have a ripped off control arm mount here. This front part, other than being pushed back, is pushed down. This control arm is banana shaped. The engine should be here, not here. The fuel pump is smashed up into the frame. Same with the whole engine is pushed over quite a bit. And then this box, this AC box that was right here, is broken because the engine smashed into it and caused a giant hole. So another view right here, you can see just how messed up this really is. Alright, I think we're ready to pull it, with the exception of the motor mount. Everything is apart and off. Is that off? Alright, one power steering line we still have to do. I'm going to cut this with the Sawzall because the bolt won't come out. Let's go underneath and look at the transmission, make sure we got everything done on that. The last thing we need to do, we need to push that tail shaft in and try to pop this U-joint out so that we can get the transmission undone. I've got the mounts are undone. Looks like maybe a speedometer cable still needs to come out. Yep, speedo cable still needs to come out. The shifter's all unhooked. I opted to leave the rods and the shifter in the car. It's easier to take out before or after the transmission's gone, but I don't see any cracks or broken parts or anything like that so far. We have yet to get it out, but we'll just have to see. Alright, we're ready to cut this engine mount, and I had to remove the alternator to kind of get my Sawzall a little bit better access. And check this out, something I didn't see when initially I looked at it. The alternator bracket's broken from the impact, so hopefully nothing else is broken and my transmission is in good shape, but it was a hard hit. goes. All right. All right, look at that. It went thump once I cut it, but it's all the way through. So that means this engine and transmission should be free to be removed at this point. So this is my engine pulling setup. It's a 2-ton engine crane from Harbor Freight. It's worked great, and I've probably had it for 10 years. I've done at least 25 engine pulls with it, if not more. Great thing. The other major thing that I always remember to do when I'm taking engine out and in is you need a chain that's worth its weight. So that is a very heavy duty chain. Never had an issue with it. We have attachment points diagonally on the engine block, so it should come up and out. I'm hoping that we can lift it up and then scoot it over. The fact that it's twisted and kind of smashed into the frame on one side, well, we'll see if we can get around that. So here's the hoping. She's out. And you know what? I don't see any external damage other than obviously motor mounts being broken. And maybe this exhaust manifold. The transmission looks really good. Dirty, but really good. Here's the other side. I think it's going to work just perfect. Alright, we have the transmission disassembled off the engine. And I'm happy. So here's the transmission. Everything does spin. I can get the output and input to spin. All the levers will shift into the respective gears. The bell housing isn't broken. It isn't cracked. All the correct shift fork stuff, Corvette only stuff, is there. That bearing could probably be replaced. I mean, it's smooth spinning, but there's just a little bit of play, so it's obviously used. We'll replace that. The other thing is the clutch is a replacement one. It is made in the USA, and it doesn't look too bad. I've seen way worse clutches than this. And then here is the other side of it. That isn't perfect. The big question I have is going to be this flywheel right here. So this is for an older style engine. It is not for what I believe has a one-piece rear main seal like the engine in the car. So that is a big question mark, and that is what we're going to have to figure out next. But what we can do now is we can take all these pieces, we can clean up what we're going to reuse, we can probably reseal that transmission, open it up, look inside of it, make sure all the gears look good inside. Because honestly, if the gears look good and it shifts through everything, it's fairly simple. But yeah, that was what I wanted to get done today, and we're on to the next step, which is pull out another engine and another transmission. All right, we are back working on the 73, and sadly, in order to put a different transmission in it, we have to take the engine and the transmission both out of the car, and I'll show you why. So this being an original manual transmission car, this cross member is actually welded in. So if this was an automatic car, we could drop this and remove it, or at least move it out of the way enough to get this transmission out. But the problem is, this transmission, I can't drop it from the bottom. Like, what I'd normally do in a transmission swap is leave the engine in, drop the transmission, put the new one in. We can't do that, so it's all gonna come out. So luckily, whoever had this car before definitely did not do a very quality job in installing it at all. I put these bolts in, so there's that. The shift cable is already gone. The speedometer cable was never hooked up. We come over on this side, the modulator line is unhooked. These cooler lines went to nothing. Basically, all I had to do was unhook the tri-shaft and take these two bolts out, and the transmission from here to here is ready to come out. So maybe there's a good thing from, you know, dummies working on it, but less work for me, I guess. And then easy enough, we'll drop the headers, we'll unhook the starter, we'll take the fuel pump lines off. We'll come around here, we'll do the same thing on this side with the header, motor mount bolts, and then in reality, that should be it. That should be all it needs to come out, so it shouldn't take too long. All right, and just like that, it's ready to pull. It literally took me like half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, since I already had all the cooling system apart to replace the radiator. And yeah, we're ready. There's really shouldn't be anything else connected. We've got the headers, the fuel pump, the motor mount bolts were hand tight. So yes, this engine was just thrown in here to resale. But you know what? We're gonna make it a real good driver. So let's get the engine hoist and let's take this sucker out. Well, it's out. I was this close to not making a mess, but the front of the engine moved forward and made a mess. Dang it. This close, I didn't spill a drop of anything. No transmission fluid, no fuel, no anything until I get it here. So that's just how it goes. But we have the there's a transmission ready to be removed. It's painted. It's actually maybe rebuilt, I don't know, but it'll probably be for sale or kept around until I need one. But we'll get that off and see what we're working with. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for this video. It's way too hot to continue today, but the cold front coming in tonight, so tomorrow we can get on to putting the manual transmission in it. So this is part 1. I'll see you guys in part 2.